This will be another AD&D Toolkit tutorial video on creating characters. I've done one in the past. This is going to be a redo for a couple of reasons. One, the sound quality was really poor on that first video. Hopefully it's better on this one. And secondly, I have made some improvements to the Random NPC character generator system. So I'll be showing that as well. All right, so the first thing I want to do is in the past few videos, I've been just showing some of the display theme options that we have in Toolkit. Today, I think I'm going to do Green Dragon. From here, we are going to create a new character. So we go to My Characters. On the My Characters screen, this is my stable of characters I currently have. Or I click Create Character, start a new one. When I'm in here, first thing we can do is click this. Well, I guess let me just go through these input fields here. So System will be the first choice you need to make, where your character will be for first edition, second, if we have any homebrew character classes, which we do have one currently, or Unearthed Arcana for 1E. Choosing this system option here only impacts the character creation process. And if you scroll down on these post creation notes for the character, you'll see system once created, your character defaults to the 1E core values. That is until they join a campaign, and then the campaign dictates what system all of the characters are held to, 1E, 2E, UA, and so forth. But choosing the system here in the character creator dictates what rule sets the toolkit will force the user to abide by. So for instance, if I leave it as first edition, a paladin must be human, whereas if I go to other editions, or actually paladin is also a subclass of fighter. And for instance, like if I chose Unearthed Arcana, now the Paladin is actually a subclass of the Cavalier class. But again, only in regards to creating that character. The system will then force you into the rules of that system until the character is created. So that's our system options. Then a name, one's automatically generated for you, but you can of course overwrite that to whatever you want. The gender that you're going to be playing, the race, and you'll see, for instance, here, now that I have Unearthed Arcana chosen as our system, I have sub-races for elves and dwarves and so forth. Whereas if I go back to first edition, I now just have the standard races in there. Classes likewise. The array of classes in here are determined by the system we've chosen for character creation. And you'll see multi-class options towards the bottom, alignment, and then if you wish to get a little kooky with your characters and bypass all of the limitations as far as class align, like, you know, a druid in 1E has to be neutral. If you want to have a neutral good druid, you can do that by checking this box, and then it won't check any of the rule sets. When you go to create the character, it'll just create it for you. And then your abilities. These are rolled automatically. The initial rolls you see on this page are 46, dropping the lowest one. But then when you do any subsequent re-rolls or whatnot, there's different factors that determine how the rolls were done. So I generally don't recommend you use these numbers for PCs. The systems for generating these randomized rolls are more for NPC characters. Once you have everything filled out here how you want to create your character, you'll click this big create button, and then you'll be done. You'll have your character. But I do just want to review a couple of the notes down here in the post-creation notes. You'll see first in the character age. In 1E in particular, there are age brackets, and as your character progresses through them, from youth to young adult, mature adult, and older adult or something like that. I forget exactly what they are, but I believe there's 5 brackets. And as you progress through each of them, your abilities can change slightly. At young adult, you'll have high constitution. And as you age, you'll gain wisdom, but your constitution might go down. And generally, it's like a plus or minus 1. Rarely do you see a 2 as you go through those 5 age brackets. When you create your character, most, if not all, of the characters can be in one of the first 2 age brackets, either like a very young adult or adult. And so you might see some slight changes to these ability scores once you click this create button. Again, for instance, if you create a young adult, your wisdom might go down by 1 and your constitution might go up by 1. Your starting gold will be calculated per class once you create the character. And again, here abilities can change, not only because of that age factor, but also races. For instance, a half-orc character gets +1 to strength, +1 to constitution, -2 to charisma. And those pluses and minuses will come off of the values you have here once you click create. And finally, a reminder about the system, that whatever system you chose here is strictly for creating the character and what rules to abide by to guide you through the process. But once created, they default to 1E until that character joins a campaign that has a different system. And then here you'll see finally, we do have a blog post that I had written. I'll just click on that quick. And it shows a table here with parameters and values that you can submit a URL to this character creation screen with those parameter value pairs, and it'll populate all of this data for you by way of that URL. So that is primarily for other developers who are creating character generators. It's very simple for them to export a URL to this page of mine with those parameters built in, and so the characters they generate in their generator can be imported, in essence, here in Toolkit. And then finally, I wanted to show you up here where you see Roll Random NPC. When you click on this, it'll first determine what system you have set, and then it'll roll you a random NPC. It'll include multi-classes, it'll include everything on here. Just to show you how that works. You'll see this time, I happen to roll a ranger. So first, the system determines the class for a random NPC using the ratios that Gygax had written into the DMG. I believe it is around 20% clerics, 44% fighters, 15% thieves, 20% mages, and 1% monk. I believe those might be the values, if not really close to that. And then the subclasses are subsumed under those percentages. So for instance, the 20% for cleric is actually there's a, I think, 17% or 16% chance for a cleric, and then like a 4% chance for a druid. Similarly with mage and illusionist, and then the fighter class, which is the most prominent in AD&D 1E. I think it's 44%, but there's a bunch of subclasses subsumed within there. And again, depending on what system you're running. So if we set this to Unearthed Arcana and roll for a random NPC, you'll see a subrace here. We have different race and class options. So for instance, a barbarian would now be one of the fighter subclass options built within that 44% of all characters that are fighters. And additionally, your initial rolls on your abilities will be impacted by the class that's selected. So fighters, for instance, I believe the DMG, I think it might be page 100 in 1E, says that a fighter NPC gets +2 strength added to their 3d6 roll, or actually it should be a 4d6 roll or something commensurate to that. And their constitution gets a +1. And again, another rule within the DMG for 1E is non-germane is the word they use. So generally that means their primary abilities. So a fighter's strength, if it's an ability other than strength And Constitution for a fighter, it'll be a 3d6 roll. But for primary abilities like Strength and Constitution, the fighter would roll one of the alternative PC versions or strategies, one of the 4 that's listed in the DMG early on. For instance, 4d6 dropping the lowest. And then after you do those 3d or 4d6 rolls, we add 1 or 2 for the class that you have in the primary abilities. And then once you do create a character, you will find it here in your list of characters that can be found by going to Players and My Characters. And the newest one we just created, you'll see that I wrote down here Cheyenne Hanley, that half-elf cleric mage. And when I'm ready to play her, I'll want to click the Activate button. If I made a mistake or just if I'm done playing her, I can delete. And then Campaign. Once I've found a DM with a campaign that I want to join, I click on the Campaign button or link, and I'll be given a token here, some kind of code that the DM will supply to me, and I just paste that in there twice, click Submit, and then it'll show me the name of the campaign and the name of the Dungeon Master and ask for confirmation if I want to join that or not. Click yes if you do, no if you don't. And that's basically it. So I hope that was helpful. Hopefully, like I said, the sound quality is better for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.